90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Riley, for FM Punk, and we've got a very special guest tonight. The one and only, the legendary, I can't believe this is happening right now, Henry Rollins. How you doing, Henry?
Oh, I'm good.
Man, I didn't even know where to start with this one, honestly. But I guess what I should probably start with, you've got this spoken word tour coming up, obviously, for obvious reasons, probably the first one in a while. Is there anything you plan on talking about in particular on it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I go into every tour I do overprepared. I think some performer types are good at improvisation, like going on stage with, no ideas and seeing what the night will dictate. I'm not one of them. And so I work on the material I'm going to bring onto the stage, doing like out loud edits, thinking through the ideas and the stories over and over and over again, like polishing a stone, just so when I get out on stage, I'm hopefully not going to waste anyone's time. And so, yeah, I've been going over all the things I want to talk about, and hopefully I have too much material. That's what you want, so you can pick and choose and rotate ideas in and out, because I have 80 shows in 85 days. And so I never get tired of the material, but it's good to be able to pull something out and put something in and just kind of keep it moving within the set of material you've prepared.
Definitely. And it's always good to be really prepared. Regardless of if you're just doing spoken word, if you're doing music, if you're doing radio, although I think there is always room for spontaneity, that's always welcome. But
yeah, and a lot of that will come up. I mean, quite often what happens on tour is I leave with about 3 hours of material. And within a few weeks, it's like 5 hours of material, because sometimes, sadly, someone has died and it makes the newspapers, and I might have known that person. I was supposed to be, my European dates canceled. I was supposed to be in Russia like 2.5 weeks ago. That would have been a really interesting night had they let me on stage. I've been to Ukraine twice. And so now that the world is witnessing Russia push into Ukraine, suddenly my visits to Russia and my visits to Ukraine are relevant, to where had Putin not pushed into Ukraine, I don't know if either country would have come up as far as something I would want to talk about. And so sometimes something happens like that day where I can connect dots from an event. I'm like, well, I better talk about that. And that's where some degree of spontaneity might come in. But by the time I get to showtime, I try and be a professional driver on a closed course, less I, drive into a pylon.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely, and honestly, I think it's always cool to hear you talk about current events, stuff like that. I feel like you've got a long history of activism, from like the West Memphis 3 stuff years ago to all the work you've done for veterans and sticking up against homophobia and stuff. Just to name a few, I think you could agree I'd probably be here all day if I tried to list everything. So
I think it's important, and you will do what you will. You're a Homo sapiens with a big brain, and we're all very complex. And so what you will do or not do what you think is right. And some people, they can't stand racism or homophobia or misogyny. They don't necessarily need to stand up and go do a benefit or contribute money. Maybe that's just not how they are. So I don't think it's incumbent upon everyone to, get on a soapbox or do something. In that, I don't tell people what to do, but I guess I'm one of those people, like a hothead or something. And having been raised by a homophobic, racist, misogynist father who tried to make me think like him. And I'm not anywhere near the brightest bulb in the chandelier, but at an early age, he would be trying to inculcate me into his way of thinking. And I'm just this dumb, hyperactive little kid, and I just would listen to him like, that's just crazy, like what you're saying. Like, but how can an adult be crazy? I mean, he's driving a car. Like, we're driving to McDonald's, the only one within 50 miles of the house. Like, how can he not know everything? He's grown up. But what he's saying, I don't even understand half of what he's talking about. I mean, he would say, like, when you see more homosexuals, not the word he would use, in society, like Rome, it's how this country will fall. Like I'm 7. I don't understand what you're talking about, but that can't be right. That can't be right. It's just It's just from crazy town. And so I was raised in that, and it fostered a really strong reaction to all of that. So when it rears its ugly head in society at large in front of me as an aging adult, eligible for Medicare anytime soon, I can't be quiet because I know firsthand how destructive these things are and how unnecessary bigotry is. Like, you don't have to hate a gay person. I mean, that's really an extracurricular activity.
Yeah.
Like, you got to burn calories. You got to FedEx yourself across town to go yell something out of your car. But I was raised by a guy who did that, who's also a PhD. Like, not a stupid guy, like really smart and just really mean. And between having seen it and been subjected to it and punk rock, instructed me like, well, maybe you don't shut up. Maybe you're like Joe Strummer, where you pointed out, or Ian MacKaye, where you pointed out, and you put lights on it and go like, what's up with that? And so having good inspiration, caused me to really want to stand up in the face of that which I think is wrong. Because the century is going to be defined by the brave standing up to ignorance. And I think the brave and the right will win. I just think that it's at this point right now, way before you were born, there was a guy named Ronald Reagan, and he really unleashed, he helped dumb down the American electorate. Like he really opened a can of whatever, you can't say it on the radio, on public education. And, my mom was a government worker. Her entire career was trying to make public educational systems deliver for kids. And talk about someone who came home frustrated from the workplace every day just because she was in continual battles of like being funded, because there was a push to not have Americans know stuff because it makes it easier to fill battlefields and prisons.
Yeah.
And it's easier. Yeah. But those are revenue streams like you can't believe. That's very real. It's
100%.
where the real money gets made. Right. And so I try to punch up. I criticize those who punch down, like the straight guy who says, "Well, what about rights for straight people?" Like, pal, you have all the rights. like the country was built for you.
Yeah, for real.
Built by straight people for straight people. Like shut up.
Yeah.
What about rights for white people? You have them all. Like,
yeah.
All of this was written for you. Like, well, white lives matter. Like that's not the discussion being had, and know it. Like, stop. Like, just stop it now. And so these things, when someone says, well, my enemies are, the homosexual agenda, really? But my enemy is thirst. My enemy is famine. My enemy is illiteracy. I mean, I try and punch up, not punch down. And so, coming out of the 60s as a very young person, watching the draft numbers on the television, asking my mom, am I going to Vietnam? And I couldn't even tell you where it was. I was like 7. And, she's like, no, what are you, crazy? I'm like, no, I'm your son. I mean, like, I'm watching the TV. Like, what do I know?
Yeah.
I'm watching this and watching Batman. So, like, it's all the same to me. So it was basically time and place that created me. Washington, D.C. in the 60s and 70s was a real trip, let me tell you. And that plus punk rock, and I have never considered myself an activist. I'm just easily angered. I think that's it. I get really angry really easily. And I think if the anger is well placed. I didn't work with the West Memphis Three because I felt bad for them. I was outraged at the state of Arkansas for how they had sullied justice and put these three obviously innocent young men in prison, one on death row. So it was about helping these three innocent men. But the thing that got me up in the morning, like wanting to rain fury from the sky above, was my anger towards Arkansas and this miscarriage of justice. And I've contributed a lot of money over the years to different organizations. It's not out of love for something as much as it is inspired by my anger towards those who would make a gay kid think he or she is not worthy of life. I feel bad for the kid, but I feel hostility towards the forces that make that young person want to self-harm.
Yeah.
I want to stand in the way of that. And so the inspiration comes not like, hey, let's go do something good today. It's like, where are these SOBs? And let me at them.
Yeah, I feel that.
And that's, I think you achieve the same objective, but the inspiration maybe is coming from a more of a brawler's POV. But when the money gets raised and it goes to the attorneys, like in the case of the West Memphis Three, it didn't go to the three innocent men in prison. It went to their damn attorneys, because they are the ones who emancipated the West Memphis Three. Mm-hmm. It wasn't you, it wasn't me. It was the money that we raised, and it was thousands of people who donated money to that thing from all over the world. People really felt that particular case. And it's the lawyers, like these dogged attorneys. And I know, because I cut checks to law firms, not to Damien. And so I understood the politics of it. It's just legalese, and these guys just never sleeping. It was trying to get like a 9 million ton marlin into your boat with dental floss. You can do it. You just have to really stay on it. And so at age 61, I'm still angry, but I think the anger is good, because it's not like I'm kicking holes in walls. I don't want the LGBTQ runaway kid to miss a meal or kill themselves. And so if you're angry about that destruction done to good people, I think that's as good a motivator as any thought of benevolence, because the same goal is attained.
Yeah, and I definitely, all these things you're talking about, it all rings very, very true for me. I was the vice president at the Pride Club for quite a while over here at my college, and I saw so many horrible stories. Like, I mean, I'm openly gay, but like, most of like the hate I got was from like my peers, and I could kind of deal with that, But I saw all these things you're talking about with like kids running away and kids being abused by their families, and it just made it made me mad. It made me mad, just like you said.
I'm glad it made you mad and not self-destructive.
Yeah,
because it's so easy to turn that energy on oneself. And the fact that a gay person is hazed or hurt by one's peers, it's so sad.
It is.
Because it's these peers, and thankfully, I think this is I would like to think it was way worse when I was your age. That is to say, I would like to think it's getting better. I believe that, but maybe I'm just naive. I just don't think you can convince a young person to be homophobic as easily as you could when I was your age, which is like Reagan was president or something.
Yeah.
There was no internet. There was less being said about it. Like it wasn't on the news. And the idea of a teenage person or a young 20-year-old person being homophobic, you're bombing the home team. I mean, you must ally yourself with other young people, because you're going to need to pull the reins of power away from people my age and older really soon. And if you are homophobic, like all you're doing is committing friendly fire. Like, these people are not your enemies. And it makes me crazy when a young person is like that towards another young person. Like, you guys are all the home team. Like, you should be thicker than thieves. You should be welded together. Like, and as a force, because you've got a lot of work to do. Like this century, it's essential that it finishes better than how it started. Because this, like you're lucky to be alive right now. This is the make or break century. Like what gets done in this century is going to affect all the others, which can be said of the previous century. But now with natural resources where they are, the science being that which, here's a bunch of solutions. Use them or don't. If you don't, future generations are going to have a really awful time. If you use them correctly, this can be the century that gets taught in universities in the future as like, that's the century where they figured it out. And they got Homo sapiens and all other life forms out of the damn mess the previous centuries helped, form the momentum of. And that's why, I think when I saw, these young people standing up against, when you had shootings in schools and shootings on campus, and what do some people say? Oh, these are crisis actors. It didn't happen. Like, well, okay, that's the country I live in. Like, wow. And maybe I shouldn't have said, wow. Maybe I was just naive. I thought people wouldn't say something that stupid. Again, an adult saying like no one really died at Sandy Hook. They're just acting. You breed? Like you have kids and you said that? Oh no. And
yeah.
It's really something. So as a gay person, I don't think you can really rest in that there's people that you need to save. And I think anybody should be not homophobic, but it's one of those things where I have to be bound and gagged and shut it up because it infuriates me, especially when it's young people.
Yeah.
No one asks to get born. You kind of shot out of the canal or otherwise into life. And, some people are gay and some people aren't, and we're a complex species. And when ignorance and intolerance is faced upon young people, I went to an all-boys school. I was raised in a super gay city, Washington, D.C. I had one gay boss after another. My mom, to the left of my mom is Joan Baez in a wall. And, I lived with her for the most part. And a lot of her friends were gay. I had gay babysitters. And so I understood, well, some guys like guys. And this was like the 70s, and you could hear what my boss at the movie theater's friends would come in on the weekends, and they would tell me about their exploits. I'm like, oh, whoa, like that's incredible, man. And so I had no gay fear, but I went to an all-boys school. So my 10th grade, I had pretty good gaydar, to use a vulgar term. And I went, oh, this teacher, that guy, that guy. And it was funny watching like the poor guy who would eat a live hand grenade every day trying to suppress himself because we're a bunch of stupid teenagers. If you're gay, you're going to get, not beat up, but you're going to get teased. And I remember one teacher in particular, I was at some stupid school dance, and this teacher who's brilliant, so smart, so funny, so cool, and he's the one who gave us, it lasted for a year, he put a drama department into our high school. And I was in 3 plays that year. But it was like maybe the senior prom or something, and he came with this woman, and you can tell he didn't know her. And she was really beautiful, way outside of his teacher's salary. And I'm like, that's odd. They're standing next to each other. She looks like a mannequin. And it was years later, I'm like, oh, she's a beard. Like she was hired just so my teacher can look normal. And so 100 years later, I'm in D.C. doing a show, and security comes into the dressing room after the show and says, hey, there's a guy outside. He says he wants to meet you. He says he was your biology teacher. And I'm like, oh, of course. And that was the teacher. And he comes in and from so many years of wearing a uniform and standing when the teacher comes in and sitting, I was like dog trained. And he walked in. I stood up and called him Mr. And he said, Henry, like we're too old. Like just call me and by his first name, which I found very difficult to do. And he was such a great teacher and such a good guy. And, I'm old, he's older. And like he brings in his grizzled, gray-haired male partner, and who was wonderful. And the three of us had this laugh-filled conversation. And I didn't want to bring up the escort, but it all made sense. And look at how this guy, an incredibly good guy, had to hide himself to the douchebag teacher peers of his. Talk about unnecessary. I'm glad the woman got a night's pay, but that kind of ignorance, you can't have that at your university. You can't have that in your USA, the one that I'm going to be exiting out of relatively soon, the one that you have for decades going forward. You have to solve this. And I'll be able to help you for a few more years, but soon I'll be in diaper pants, and I won't be of much help, right? As Robert Plant said about reforming Led Zeppelin, are you kidding? We'll need help getting up the stairs soon. So he said that. But it's very incumbent upon you, I think, as a young person, to not shut up ever. Every day, do not shut up, as Flavor Flav used to say, hang loose and never shut up. And so, and this to me is what the future is all about.
Yeah, I mean, wow, that was a lot. That was beautiful, Henry. I mean, and I feel that, I really, I've had a lot of people in my life tell me to shut up, and something inside me just refuses to. I can't. Sorry, you got to hear my annoying voice more, but I feel strongly about a thing, and I feel that it should be known. And if nobody else,
and you understand, there's nothing wrong.
Yeah,
right?
I understand. For me, the people who have something wrong with them are the people so consumed by how other people that they don't really interact with that much live their lives, that their heart just becomes blackened with this hatred for these people that haven't done anything for them.
Yeah, and it, again, we are complex. And so where does that come from? It can come from all kinds of places and for all kinds of reasons. And if you would hang out with this person and drill down deep enough, there's maybe a really sad story back there. You go back to this person's 11th year and they experience some true domestic horror that should not have happened to that person. There's quite often there's abuse, horrible abuse, and it comes out. It almost ferments and explodes. And the explosion is not always rational, but it is full of pain. And I don't think it's over for these people. I just think, and this isn't always true, some people just like to hate other people. That's just how they roll. But quite often, there's something back there where you're like, man, that should not have happened to you. And your reaction, okay, you reacted to it, but can you see your way? Can you see what you're doing to this guy for no good reason? And I'm sorry you're hurting, but can you address that pain in a way that you don't have to beat this guy up? Because you didn't do your pain any good, and you just exacted a toll on someone else who doesn't deserve it. And there's a thing I'm going to be talking about on this upcoming tour is maybe we, the Team Homo sapiens, maybe we need to shake the Etch-a-Sketch and just really clear the deck and start over again. Maybe we've got a lot of this wrong. You're going to see, 40 years from now, you're still going to be able to remember the mean things said to you in the schoolyard in first grade. You'll never forget that. You'll remember how the kid's voice sounded and why. Why will you carry that to your deathbed? Because humans are easily screw-upable. It doesn't take much to traumatize us, and no one is all that tough. And so when someone goes, suck it up, Caroline, it'll help you get into the adult world. Well, why does the adult world have to be that harsh? Because you said so? Because you won't stand up and make it not so harsh? Why does someone have to be so tough? Well, because the real world, well, why don't you improve the real world instead of just telling me how much it sucks and you better be ready? Why don't you do the heavier lift and fix it, or at least make it better? And so when you see people, these kids are so woke, they're being told you can't say that in the schoolyard. You know what? Maybe it's time to upgrade the conversation in the schoolyard.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time for teachers to hover around going, whoa, Bobby, we don't, no. You don't get to bury Catherine in the sandbox.
Yeah.
that's not cool, but it's fun. Well, there's all kinds of ways to have fun. You don't have to suffocate anyone.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that you have to wrap everyone in like bubble wrap. But why don't you upgrade the overall exchange of ideas and conversation? That's not all that hard to do. You just have to want to, and you have to, allow science and development and people who, really understand how the human brain works. I actually know a person who studies the brain. I know this person very, very well, and there's a whole lot of stuff to know. I think that maybe we humans have a lot of improvement to do because the basic model skews towards decency, of course, but a lot of hostility and needless brutality. And I'm not saying, everyone needs to be like Alan Alda and hug a tree, but maybe you don't have to call the guy this, and this. Because it's just not necessary, and you haven't even met the guy, and there's a story, and maybe that's where this century can go. Maybe that's where some energy can go, and I think it's a really good idea. I think it's an idea that is not. It's got some teeth to it because it's got some calories, and so I've been thinking about this, and I've been flexing this idea to my brainiac doctor pal. And she says, there's and she breaks it down scientifically about how trauma and abuse really registers in humans. And I just think there's a lot of improvements to be made. I just think they need to be made in this century. Selfishly, it's the only one I have left. So I want the victory lap and the hero's welcome.
Yeah, I think it really, there is a lot of work that needs to be done. It really needs to be done soon, but I do feel like so much of it does start so simply, is, as you said, just sort of upgrading the conversation or just showing kindness to someone, not just like when, I think for a lot of people, they have no problem doing it when everybody's looking, when it'll net them points or whatever, but I think it's especially important, most of all when it's unpopular to do so.
That's right. Unwitnessed goodness, like when there's no one to show it off to. There's people I know, and I will not divulge their names because they're so great. They give, a couple of rock stars I know, they give like the GDP of Spain in money. They contribute anonymously, and they've told me, and since they contribute anonymously, I'm going to let them remain anonymous. But they have forked over more money than you're going to see in a long time to relief for everything from floods to deforestation to human stuff, and they do it anonymously, and because they don't want to do a press release about it. They have the means, and so they just do good. There's no law on the books that I'm aware of that will force you to do good. I mean, murder's against the law, yet people do it. There's been murder since you and I have been talking. So there's no law that's going to really get you to do anything. So anything you do that's good, it is almost completely elective. And if you can divorce yourself from your ego, you don't need someone going, "Hey, man, that was really cool of you." My little companies, we started contributing money. It's been really difficult with COVID, but we do it twice a year, and we contribute money to different agencies. And the amazing, brilliant women who run my companies with me, I let them pick the agencies we donate to. They'll say, "Hey, what about this one?" I go, "If you like it, I like it," because they're never wrong. And we've been doing this since we could afford to do it. We don't really talk about it. We just do it because it's a cool thing to do. You don't have to be able to send a big check to somewhere. You can send $20. You can also just go to the end of the block and help the guy bring his trash cans up the driveway. There's lots of good you can do, but the point I'm making is it's an elective, because there's no law that says you be good or be else or else. And even, we'll lethally inject you if you murder. That doesn't stop the guy from killing his wife because he just, it's the moment. He doesn't think he's going to get caught, whatever the reason is, but the law didn't stop him. And so it's going to be up to you, the individual, to do good, to be good, because there's, with at least the USA's version of freedom. You're given like 9 million miles of rope. You can make a noose. You can build a bridge with it. Whatever. So it's all incumbent upon you to do good or not. And I take that very seriously because I want to be responsible for myself. And so I don't need to be in a group of people doing something. I'll go do something good on my own. And I do lots of good things, which I don't need to bring up lest someone think I'm trying to impress them. I just think it's the right thing to do, and I quite enjoy it. It's fun being good. I quite enjoy it. Being bad, it never really interested me. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how much of a decent moral person I am. I just doing bad stuff. I don't know. It never rocked me as hard as like doing a benefit or helping someone else out. A few months right before COVID, Cyndi Lauper's person contacted my manager, Heidi, and said, can you ask Harry if he's a Cyndi Lauper fan? And Heidi, we have adjoining offices. She yells over, you like Cyndi Lauper? I'm like, every day, of course. She goes inside. He said, yeah. And it's like, well, Cyndi does her LGBTQ homeless kid benefit every year. Would Henry like to take part? And which I said, yeah. She said, okay, well, a duet with Cyndi Lauper, or Henry can be on stage with his band, which I haven't had for 20 years. It's okay. They didn't get that press release. No, it's okay. Well, he doesn't have a band. Okay. And so come up with an idea. And Heidi, thankfully, is never short on ideas. She goes, okay, I have an idea for something you and Cyndi to do. I said, okay. She goes, you and Cyndi, because she has a house band, you and Cyndi will duet Rise Above by Black Flag.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that. That was awesome. I loved it.
I said, that's, wow, Heidi, like, you're really good. I said, yeah, I'm ready. So Heidi texted that in, and Cyndi Lauper texted back to Heidi. We can't say the first word of the two-word answer, but the second word was yeah.
Yeah.
And 10 days later, whatever it was, I'm at SIR rehearsals in Los Angeles meeting Cyndi Lauper. Am I getting the lyrics right? I'm like, yeah, sure. It was utterly surreal. And we did that, and I'm sure a few heads exploded. But, that was the year we designated our bi-yearly contribution to Cyndi's outfit. And this is what we are able to do. And we do. And this is how I push back. This is how I punch up. And it's not changing the world necessarily, but it's an effort to try and improve it because I see things happening that I vigorously disagree with.
Yeah, and I did quite enjoy that performance. That kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Blew my mind a little bit too. Thanks. We did that song 5 times, like 3 times at band practice. The band was like, they're really, really good. They got it. We did it 1 time at sound check and then 1 time live. And I've never watched it, but I don't know what the camera's caught, but she was talking to me as we were walking off stage, and she said, of the 5 times, I think that was the best one. And I said, I agree. And it was easily the best one. Pressure was on. And so we lucked out. The best version of us doing that together, where the band and the two of us came together, was that one that you saw. The other versions were okay, but we luckily, pulled it off for prime time. But it was that was a really good night, knowing that some of my ex-bandmates, at least 1 or 2 heads exploded.
Yeah.
They saw it, which is fine. It's art, man. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, that was pretty incredible. Honestly, I enjoyed that quite a bit, and I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but it did get me wondering if at some point in the future, just for old time's sake, would you ever consider doing music like one time, maybe one more time? Like
no. Well, it'd be like I like all those songs, and I didn't always have a great time in those days. Being in a band is pretty tough. It's you're too close to your bandmates sometimes, where you love them so much you want to strangle them. So,
Yeah.
and for me, I'm not a musician. I'm just a crass opportunist. I'm a high school graduate from the minimum wage working world, and I just do stuff. And so I was able to do some music. I did it, made a lot of records, sold a lot of records, which is neither here nor there. Played all over the world, but it was time and place for me. Neil Young or Bob Dylan, they get up every day and they go, okay, I must write a song because I am Bob Dylan. I'm not that guy. And so when music was over for me, like when I no longer thought lyrically, I literally sat up in bed and went, I'm done. Like, ding, done. And I called my manager and I said, hey, Richard, I'm done with music. And he saw 10% of that just go poof, like no more sushi for you. And he was like, no. I'm like, well, yeah. And he says, we'll do a greatest hits tour. I'm like, who has a greatest hit around here? That'll take 3 minutes. What do you do with the rest of the hour?
Yeah, right.
And so, yeah, well, don't agree with me.
No. Like, I love all your music, but I think also like asking somebody who comes from like the punk rock world to go on a greatest hits tour is like, what did you expect the answer to be? You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, there's no hits in my catalog. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But I said, yeah, Richard, I don't want to be a human jukebox up there. Like, hey, kids, remember this? And like, no, my grandfather does. And so I stopped. But luckily, through being desperate for things to do, I already had other things I was doing a lot, like being in movies and TV and doing voiceover and doing talking shows and writing books and having companies. I mean, I was already really stretched. And so I just filled in the lack of music tours and arguments in the band room with all that other stuff. And within a week, I was, busier than ever. And so I walked away rather than remain in a form that no longer addressed my thoughts that I could no longer service adequately. And so to return to it would just be watch a white-haired man have a heart attack on stage trying to get through one of those songs, much less 25 of them. I will tell you right now what I was thinking on the last 7 seconds of my performance with Cyndi Lauper when we're singing Rise Above, we're going to rise above, we're going to rise above. I was thinking, I think I am dying. I need 5 more lungs. I think my heart has never hurt this much in my life. Have I just run up K2? Oh, my God, the agony. It was...
Wow.
Damn. And I'm in pretty good shape. And, I'm not 21 anymore. It is what it is. And so I think the only reason someone of my age and stature would get together with people he doesn't necessarily communicate with besides lawyers and go do a tour would just be for the money. And it would be so nakedly for the money. You wouldn't say, boy, it's great that we're able to dust these songs off and bring smiles to faces. Dude, you're doing it for the money. And I just know that's a dollar I can't spend. I just, some money smells better than other money, and that money would stink. When my bandmates and I took the Black Flag music out, for the Rise Above tour, all the money got given to lawyers to benefit the West Memphis Three. The making of the record, the benefit album, that cost, I paid for it, my idea, my cost. That cost me over $70,000 to make that record. We had to fly people around. Just costs were incurred. And I paid my bandmates to make it. They have rent, kids, they live in the real world. And so it cost me. And then I went out and did a year of touring where I made no money at all. So that was 2 years of my life. I basically went here. And I'm not trying to impress you, nor do I have any regrets.
No, I understand that.
But I took those songs out because to me they're war hymns. And we took those war hymns into battle. And the battle was against Arkansas and their utterly corrupt idea of justice. And so I was very careful what I did with those songs. I did not pimp them out, if you will. I took them into battle because they're like the best damn songs I've ever been associated with. And I just knew that this is the right soundtrack for what we're pushing back against. Because nothing can break those songs. I mean, Greg and Chuck wrote just some of the best music I have ever heard. And I take no credit for any of it. It's Greg Ginn and Chuck Dukowski. But we took those songs into battle. I can't explain to you how many death threats and how much hate mail I got for doing that album and doing those shows. Unrelenting hate mail.
But yeah, I mean, hey, I think that's a sign when, the wrong people are angry about it. I think when it's a sign that you did the right thing, Well,
absolutely. But it's you have to grow a pretty thick skin.
Oh, definitely.
Because I'd be doing like morning radio, sitting in my underwear on the front of the bus, trying to get ticket sales up in some part of the America, and the lead-in would be, well, we're here with this Satan worshiping baby killer Henry Rollins. Let's see what he's got to say. Like, oh boy, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
And that's how I would wake up at least 1 to 3 mornings a week, doing like some morning madness radio show with 3 guys who hate my guts. So you just kind of up armor yourself and just put your butt plate in and go in.
Yeah, that definitely sounds rough though, but it all in the end I think went to a very great, very important place.
Yeah,
so.
But not rougher than being innocent of murder and waking up on death row.
Yeah.
So once you compare to what the 3 people you're fighting for are going through. I mean, I was talking to Jason Baldwin one time, who's like the bestest guy. He's just a saint of a human, soft-spoken. You'd like him. He's just a really good guy. And he's like, man, I was working at Kroger, the supermarket. I was working at Kroger with a mullet, and I was arrested. And I'm like, oh no. And he wouldn't hurt a glass of milk, this guy. And suddenly he's in prison. I mean, he almost didn't survive his first day in there. He was attacked as soon as he walked in there, and he's $120 of fear, and he nearly got his skull crushed in there almost immediately. And so when you're getting someone who says I'm going to kill you when you get to North Carolina, you're like, all right, man.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. That definitely puts everything into perspective when you see stuff like that, for sure.
Yeah. It was. I learned a lot from those years. I mean, I didn't know what size of meat I was tearing off, but by 10 years later, when or 8 or 9 years later, when in 2011 the 3 guys were cut loose, not only was it worth it, but I realized how long I had been emotionally invested in the welfare of these 3 young men who, sadly they're not young anymore, but at least they're free. It could have gone much worse.
Yeah. Wow. I gotta say, this has probably been one of the best interviews I ever did. Normally they give me 15 minutes to ask the guy some questions about his new record. This has been genuinely insightful for me.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way.
Yeah. Honestly, I wish I could just sit here for hours talking to you more, but I imagine we both have to move on soon, unfortunately.
Well, you're young, and so your Friday night has much more promise than mine does. So there's that. I'm a workaholic, so I'm in a perpetual state of being behind. So I always have something to do, and I'm always behind schedule because I just keep my schedule kind of impossible to manage.
Yeah, but in some ways, I almost want to reach that point in life where I just constantly have things to do, and it's constantly things that I care about, and not some stupid job somewhere that I don't.
Well, you might be in a position where you have to have both. You're going to need the job you don't love to keep the roof over your head, but you can do other stuff in your off time. You might not always have the job you want. It's a luxury. It's like winning the lottery to be able to show up to the workplace and and say genuinely, I love this. I mean, I've been in that situation for over 40 years, and I am nothing but grateful because I love what I do. I'm obsessed with what I do. I'm obsessed with my audience. I'm obsessed with coming up with good things for them or things I think are good and working myself, into a lather to get it over the wall. Not everyone gets to do that all the time, so you have to carve out some happiness somehow, and hopefully it's not destructive. Hopefully it's not just beer, porn, weed, and fast food. But finding a place that, won't drive you crazy and you can pull a buck out of, it's no easy deal. So that's why you need to be super inventive and be able to do A, B, C, and D and not just don't focus on A. I learned that in the summer of 1984 in my 23rd year. I was broke, playing every night, surrounded by young musical geniuses. I'm surrounded by Minor Threat, the Bad Brains, the Meat Puppets, St. Vitus, Husker Du, just all the Dead Kennedys, all these amazing bands around me, and I'm the only one who can't play an instrument. And between tours, everyone's waiting tables, living with their parents. I said, okay, they're all really talented, and they're scraping between tours. I can't do any of this, so what do I do? Because I'm gonna starve to death doing music. So I realized I'd better come up with plans B, C, D, E, F, and G, which I did. I was trying to write, thinking I could be Henry Miller. And so I said, well, I'll just really work on writing. I'm just a high school graduate. I started doing these talking shows. Well, I'll try to get better at those, and I'll just be open to say yes to things. And that turned into the template. Hey, you want to be in a movie? Sure. Can you act? No. Well, why let a lack of skill stop you from trying something? And so suddenly I'm in a student film, and soon after I'm in a car chasing Charlie Sheen down a bit of rented highway in Texas. And just because I said yes, overcame fear and trepidation and just went, well, screw it. If I look wacky in the audition and they laugh at me on the way out, at least I got a laugh. And so I've just been open-minded to try things. And so far, it's been a really interesting time. But it's just being open-minded. It's not like I have any overwhelming degree of talent. It's just that I am willing to go, well, how bad can it be if I screw this up? So I just go for it, basically. And that's been, I still don't really I have a couple of plans, but I'm not looking for a career in anything. So I'm still kind of open to suggestion as I was as a 18-year-old.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're at a place where you're happy in life and that you're still doing what you're doing, whatever it may be.
Happy enough. Yeah, it's important to wake up every morning, for me at least, and have some purpose. And so, I find it. So, young Riley, do you have content needed to realize your interview objective?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you gave me a lot.
All right. So I'll see some of you all down the road, hopefully.
Definitely. I plan on going to your show on Long Island later this month.
Yeah, that's usually a really good audience. I've never had a bad time on Long Island, so hopefully that'll be a good one.
Definitely. I appreciate this more than you'll ever know, Henry. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's good to meet you, and I'll see you soon.
Definitely. Thank you. Have a very nice day.
I will. See ya.
See ya.